Have you ever noticed how a simple, "Can I come over?" can completely disrupt your peace? As if someone were trying to enter without knocking, not into your house, but into your mind. Some people love visitors. There are people who look forward to end-of-year gatherings. And there are people like you who feel their stomach churn just knowing that someone is going to show up, even if it's for a short time, even if it's someone close to them, and nobody understands. Nobody sees what really goes on in there. Nobody realizes that the problem isn't the person, it isn't the visit, it isn't the event. That's what this represents, something for your mind. And before we continue, I want to invite you to ask a profound question. Why does the mere idea of having someone in your space cause you so much tension? That's not a simple answer. It's not obvious. And you probably never had the courage to explore it with the depth it deserves. So today, let's open that door slowly. Take it easy. Like a psychologist who understands silence and knows that sometimes it is in discomfort that truth resides. 1. The invisible weight of social expectations. The end of the year was sold to us as a time of lights, reunions, and nostalgia. But for many people, especially the more introverted ones, this is a time of emotional pressure disguised as tradition. It's almost a collective imposition. You need to receive people. You need to be available. Family is family, open the door. Don't be cold, people just want to see you. But nobody asks how you feel when you hear that. No one realizes the real discomfort that accompanies the mental preparation of receiving someone. Because when someone says, "I'll be passing by," it's not just one visitor arriving. It is a routine invasion of energy, of presence. And if you are a person sensitive to other people's vibes, if your energy recharges in silence, if your mind needs predictability to stay stable, so any visit becomes an internal trigger, a small emotional storm hidden behind a polite expression. And you know what's worse? The trial that accompanies this. Are you antisocial? Don't you like anyone? Why is it so difficult? But what nobody understands is that it's not difficult, it's profound. 2. The home as an extension of your emotional system. For many people, home is just a physical space. Not for you. For you, home is your emotional fortress. A place where you can breathe without fear of being watched, where your energy can finally relax after draining days, where you don't need to perform anything, uphold anything, or demonstrate anything. Your house is almost like your mind materialized, arranged the way you understand it, quiet, just as you need it, predictable, just as you want it. And when someone enters, this order changes, this energy changes, this silence is broken, and your mind senses it immediately. It's not being fussy. That's no exaggeration. It is an emotional mechanism created throughout life, especially in people. Introspective, hyper-observant, emotionally independent, sensitive to the environment, who carry stories of emotional self-restraint. You might even like the person, but its internal system reacts as if it were losing territory, and losing emotional territory hurts. You don't say that. You never admitted that to anyone, perhaps not even to himself, but that is the silent root of their resistance. 3. The expectation of interaction as subtle violence. Welcoming someone in isn't just about opening the door. It's about opening up the whole body, the face, the tone of voice, posture, energy, attention, the focus time. It's as if every emotional muscle needs to go into active mode. And if you're the type who gets bored quickly with socializing, so you know, receive people, it comes at a high emotional cost. It's not that you don't want to. That's because you know it will take hours, sometimes days, to recover afterward. And people don't understand the cost. Because for them, it's simple. For them, it's just company. For them, it's just a conversation. But not for you. For you, it is an entire internal process in motion. And the question that remains is, why do I need to emotionally abuse myself to meet expectations that aren't my own? Perhaps you've never said this out loud, but you feel it at the end of each year. You feel it in every attempt to avoid encounters. You can feel it in every excuse you make up, just to protect your peace. 4. Sensitivity to the unspoken people. Like you don't suffer from the visit itself. They suffer from everything that accompanies the visit. The implicit questions, the veiled trials, comments about his life, the gaze that tries to measure you, the inevitable comparisons, the atmosphere you feel, even when nobody is saying anything. You're not just paying attention, you are hyper-perceptive. You can feel the energy in the air, even before anyone sets foot there. You notice the change in tone of voice, the shift in gaze, the tension in the words. And that's tiring. It's very tiring. For you, receiving visitors is like working emotionally without pay. It's like being in constant monitoring mode. It's like trying to foresee everything to avoid any discomfort. And when the visit is at the end of the year, full of expectations, full of memories, full of comparisons, your mind simply says, "No, I don't want that burden right now." And you feel guilty about it, as if it were wrong to protect one's own peace, as if it were shameful to prefer silence to social noise, as if it were inappropriate to be more profound than is convenient. 5. Introspection as protection and imprisonment. There are people who know themselves so well inside that any external movement seems like a threat, and that's not a bad thing. It's a sophisticated form of self-awareness. But this self-awareness comes at a price. She isolates you. The more you understand your own emotional workings, the less tolerant you become of superficial interactions. He is less inclined towards forced conversations. He has less patience for maintaining social masks. So when someone says, "I'll come by at the end of the year so we can talk," what you hear is, "I'm going to demand emotional energy from you. I'm going to enter your inner space. I'm going to interfere with your rhythm. I'm going to break your silence." It doesn't matter whether the person knows this or not. Your body feels it. Your mind knows. And it reacts before you can rationalize. And that reaction is legitimate. It's real. It's profound. And that's precisely why it's so misunderstood. Now I want to ask you another question, perhaps the most important one so far. You really hate visitors? Or do you simply love your peace more than you've learned to admit? Thinking about it hurts, but it also liberates, because it helps you realize that there's nothing wrong with you. You just function in a different way, more deeply, more sensitively, more consciously. And that's not weakness, it's identity. Sometimes, resistance to end-of-year visits doesn't stem from the present, but from the past. It's not about the people who are coming today. It's about the memories that come with it. It's about what you've learned to feel, even when no one taught you with words. Have you ever noticed that some social situations seem to evoke a kind of emotional echo? What if certain current experiences trigger older versions of yourself? When someone says they're going to show up at your house, it's not just the present that is activated. It's a whole collection of emotions, memories, stories, pressures, and silent wounds. And perhaps you've never realized how much these layers shape your behavior today. Let's start unlocking this together. 6. Discomfort as an emotional legacy. Many people grew up in environments where home was never truly a safe space, where there was always pressure, noise, demands, tension, where visits meant judgment, comparison, exposure. If in your childhood visits were synonymous with inspection, reviews, comments about her body, her mannerisms, her life, conversations you hated but were forced to listen to, invasive behaviors, or simply the loss of their space, it's only natural that your whole body rejects that idea today, because the body remembers, the body archives, the body responds before consciousness. So, when someone announces a year-end visit, you don't just feel a momentary discomfort. Do you feel an emotional echo from years ago? And it doesn't matter if people are different today. Your mind is not reacting to the present moment. She reacts to the pattern. And this pattern says, visitors are a threat to your emotional space. You didn't choose to feel this way. You learned. And because he learned it, he can also unlearn it. But only if you first have the courage to look at what lies beneath. 7. The silent fear of disappointing. Some people avoid visitors because they feel they need to be in a perfect emotional state to receive them. As if there were a socially imposed ideal self. Kind, willing, receptive, live, socially functional, emotionally stable. But what about when you're not feeling like that? And what if you just want to protect yourself? And what if your silence is your way of breathing? For some people, receiving visitors is more than just opening the front door. It's opening the door to an emotional performance. And the truth is, you might already be too tired to act. You know that if the person comes, you'll have to smile, keep the conversation going, look good, manage your energy, even if internally I am exhausted. And then comes the question you're afraid to admit. What if I can't be what they expect of me? This fear, however subtle, is paralyzing. And it makes you avoid any situation where you might be closely observed. Because the closer the relationship, the greater the risk of someone seeing your vulnerability. And you've spent your whole life protecting that. 8. The sensation of having your frequency disrupted. Emotionally sensitive people live according to their own internal rhythms. They possess a mental frequency, sometimes slow, sometimes deep, sometimes silent. It's as if there's a unique emotional background music. When someone enters your house, this song changes. The frequency changes. Your body notices. Your mind feels it. Some people cope well with this change. Others don't. This is not about social intolerance. It's simply emotional neuropsychology. Your mind operates in a particular way, and any external interference destabilizes its ability to function properly. That's why, even before the visit arrives, you're already mentally exhausted, because your brain is preparing to alter its frequency to adapt to the other, and that, for you, is exhausting. 9. The unconscious defense against energetic invasion. There are people who have such a sensitive emotional field. Having someone over at home is like mixing two completely different kinds of water. Some people come in and leave a feeling of lightness. Others leave a heavy burden. Others drain. Others carry tensions that you can sense even when they try to hide them. You can feel the people, even when you don't want to feel it. It's as if your mind absorbs nuances, tones, micro-expressions, entire atmospheres. And that's tiring because you don't just receive the person. You receive everything she brings with her. Your concerns, your humor, your problems, your energies, their uncomfortable silences, your unresolved emotions. And in the end, you're the one who ends up with the burden. It's not that you hate visitors. It's because I can no longer bear the emotional burden of others. But you never said that, did you? 10. Emotional independence as a protective barrier. Introspective, profound, quiet, and emotionally mature people. They develop a powerful type of psychological autonomy. They don't need constant presence. They don't need noise. They don't need movement. And often, they don't need people nearby. That's not coldness. That's quiet emotional maturity. But this independence, if not properly understood, it becomes a wall that prevents any approach that seems forced. End-of-year visits, by tradition, carry precisely that. Mandatory approaches. And everything that is mandatory comes into direct conflict with your autonomy. You don't reject people. You reject emotional obligations. And that's very different. Now, before we move on to the deeper roots of this behavior, I want to ask you something. A request that also serves as a psychological exercise. If any part of what I've said so far made sense to you, comment below. I feel this way, but I didn't know how to explain it. This comment is more than just engagement. It's an act of self-awareness. It's you finally letting out something you've kept inside for years. And sometimes, that alone is a form of healing. Some truths about you only come to light when you are silent. And that's precisely why end-of-year visits bother you so much. They interrupt an internal process that no one else sees. Nobody understands and nobody respects it. Because while the world sees silence as absence, you know that silence is presence. That's where you reorganize yourself. Is returned, they meet again. And now we're going to delve into the deepest, densest, and least discussed part of all this psychology. The invisible layers that govern, often without you realizing it, your aversion to visitors. Get ready. Because from now on, we're not just talking about behavior anymore, we're talking about your emotional soul. 11. Aversion to emotional surveillance. When someone enters your home, a gaze enters too. A gaze that analyzes, interprets, and evaluates. Even if the person doesn't do it maliciously, you can feel it. You can tell when someone notices your mess, your organization, your way of life, your habits, your routine. It's as if every detail reveals a piece of their intimacy. For some people, this is normal. For you, that's too much vulnerability. Your home is an extension of your mind, and you protect your mind with layer upon layer of silence. So it's natural to also protect the physical space that represents who you are. That's why when someone comes in, you feel like you're being watched. Not in a literal sense, but in an emotional one. It's a feeling of being exposed, even unintentionally. And nothing hurts an introverted person more than the feeling of involuntary exposure. 12. The emotional as private territory. There are people who live outside the country. Those who express themselves, show themselves, share themselves, and make their own emotional states public. You're not like that. Your emotions are not public. It is private, internal. profound, and any intrusion, however small, feels like an invasion. When someone visits you, especially at the end of the year, an era laden with social symbolism, it's like forcing open a territory you don't want to open. Your mind functions like a dark room where only you know what's inside, and visitors brighten up this room more than you'd like. This light is annoying. This light hurts. This light exposes. That's why you prefer to keep the doors closed. Not out of arrogance, coldness, or lack of love, but for emotional self-protection. 13. Premature exhaustion. Exhaustion doesn't begin when the visitor arrives. It begins when you know it's coming. It's premature wear and tear. The mind is preparing, the body tensing up, the energy is shrinking, the mental routine is falling apart. You start thinking about every detail. Will I have to talk to them? How long will they stay? Will they want to eat something? Will they notice anything? Will they ask me questions I don't want to answer? Will I have to explain my life? And all of this happens even before the person knocks on the door. It's like carrying the emotional weight of an entire event that hasn't even happened yet. And when it finally happens, you're already tired. It's not the visit that exhausts you. It's the emotional process of preparing for the visit. It's the invisible mental exhaustion that no one notices. 14. The mind that reads too much. You read everything. Read what the person says. Read what it doesn't say. Read the tone, the rhythm, the gaze, the pauses between the words. Read the humor that comes with it. It reads the energy of the environment. It's as if your mind is working at high resolution all the time. And this, although an extraordinary ability, it comes at a high price. During visits, especially those at the end of the year, you don't rest, don't relax. He doesn't enjoy the moment, you analyze, and that consumes. While other people simply interact, you interpret layer upon layer. And in the end, your body feels drained, empty, out of stock, almost as if I had worked for hours. Visitors affect you because your mind doesn't know how to switch off. She always continues reading the environment, as if he needed to protect himself from something. 15. The invisible pressure of, how are you? This is one of the most difficult questions for introverted people, because it demands that you expose your inner self, something you rarely do. And when visits happen, especially at the end of the year, this question is emerging with greater force. But how do you explain a whole year of silent pain? How would you summarize your deepest thoughts? How do you translate what you've experienced internally? If even you can't find the words, that's why the question makes you uncomfortable. Not because you don't know the answer, but because answering would require reopening wounds that no one realizes you have. It's easier to avoid the whole situation than dealing with the need to expose oneself. 16. Aversion to the social role at the end of the year. The end of the year creates social rituals that don't make sense to you. Hugging people you barely know, feigning enthusiasm, talk about the year, to talk about plans, participating in traditions that do not resonate with their identity, listening to comparisons, demands, expectations. It's like playing a character you didn't choose to be. And the worst part, this character needs to look accessible, happy, open, socially available. But you're not like that all the time, and it doesn't have to be. But that's what people expect from you, and that expectation weighs heavily, and it suffocates, and it makes everything uncomfortable. It's not the end of the year that you hate. It is the social theater that accompanies it, and this theater steals your authenticity, one thing you no longer negotiate. 17. Loneliness that is not pain, but identity. There is a major misconception. People think that those who avoid visitors are lonely, but you know that's not true. You don't run away from people because of a lack of affection. You run away because your loneliness isn't a wound. It's a place of balance. His solitude is his center. That's where you think best. It feels better. There are better options. And that's why, when someone invades that space, it doesn't just take your time, but also a fragment of what keeps you stable. This is not easy to explain, and maybe you've never tried, but you do feel it. 18. Emotional honesty that doesn't combine well with forced cohabitation. You are emotionally honest. You can't fake closeness where it doesn't exist. You can't sustain empty conversations. You can't force yourself to participate in moments that have no meaning. And end-of-year visits almost always require exactly that. A superficial relationship that you don't know how to handle. This type of contact wears you down because it doesn't correspond to the level of depth with which you relate to the world. While other people chat just for the sake of chatting, you feel every word. While others exchange phrases, you exchange energy. While others live on the surface, you live in the depths. And depth doesn't fit with these social routines. 19. The discomfort caused by what visitors force you to feel. There are emotions that you've learned to manage better when you're alone. Nostalgia, melancholy, introspection, all those deep sensations that accompany you. But when someone arrives, especially at the end of the year, these emotions seem to become even more intense, more difficult to organize. You are torn between the need to withdraw and the obligation to be present. And this conflict creates an internal unease that few people understand. You feel like you're in the wrong place, in the wrong energy, at the wrong pace. And this sensation is almost physical. A tightness, a tension, a discomfort that runs through the body. 20. The emotional trauma of interruption. Interruptions hurt you. They always hurt. When you are quiet, it's not just all good. You are processing emotions, organizing thoughts, rebuilding energy. And when someone invades that, even unintentionally, you feel like something inside you is being broken. And that's why visits are so uncomfortable. They interrupt processes that no one knows you're going through, but which are essential for their emotional health. It's like entering the middle of an internal chapter. How to interrupt a deep dialogue you're having with yourself. That's why it hurts. That's why it bothers me. That's why it runs out. And perhaps deep down, you've already realized that it's not lack of love that makes you reject end-of-year visits. It's the feeling that each presence demands an emotional performance from you. And every performance has a cost. You find yourself forced to smile when you don't want to answer questions you don't want to hear, to relive stories you'd rather leave dormant. And the more you force yourself to do this, the more you feel you're distancing yourself from yourself, as if each visit takes away a silent piece of your energy. Some people believe that those who avoid social gatherings are cold, distant, antisocial. But the truth is that many of these individuals feel so deeply, so intensely, that any social environment becomes a sensory marathon. It's difficult to maintain eye contact, an active conversation, a polite tone. It's difficult to deal with other people's energy, their expectations, their frustrations unwittingly thrown at you. And yet, you try again, you try to keep up the facade, you try not to seem rude, until one day you simply ask yourself, why do I always have to justify wanting peace? The end of the year carries an invisible pressure. It creates an ideal of togetherness, of united family, of everyone together. But nobody talks about those who feel swallowed up by this atmosphere. Those who grow up hearing that they need to fulfill social obligations, when all they want is a corner of their room where they can exist without being pulled into yet another conversation that consumes their soul. And the more you realize this, the more you realize it's not escapism. It's self-care. It's the need to protect what's left of you in a world that demands too much and offers little in return. And it is precisely at this point that many people get confused, thinking that avoiding visits is a sign of disinterest, when sometimes it's exactly the opposite. You care so much that you don't want to offer a tired version of yourself. You don't want to give crumbs of attention. You don't want to be physically present but absent inside. You want your presence to mean something. You want the encounter to be genuine, light, necessary. But when everything becomes an obligation, none of that happens. Imagine, for a moment, what it would be like if no one expected anything from you at the end of the year. Imagine if you could simply exist, without justifying yourself, without smiling just to keep up appearances, without having to answer questions about your life that you yourself don't know the answers to. Perhaps you would discover that you don't hate visitors. You hate the feeling of being invaded. What you reject is the excess, the expectation, the demands, the lack of respect for your silence. And then comes the question you've perhaps been avoiding for years. What exactly are you trying to protect when you avoid holiday visits? Your peace? Your privacy? Your emotional energy? Or perhaps something even deeper, your identity? Because when you find yourself surrounded by people who want to fit you into past versions of who you were, you realize that no one there sees you as you truly are today. They observe what they remember of you. They talk to who you were. They interact with memories, not with your inner reality. And that hurts. It hurts more than any difficult conversation. It hurts because you feel like no one is truly present with you. And if no one is present, why bother showing up? In the end, silence becomes a refuge, a place where you can finally breathe, where no one demands anything of you, no one invades your space, no one tries to reorganize your emotions without permission. It is in silence that you find yourself. It is in silence that you rebuild yourself. It is in silence that you realize that perhaps you don't need to blame yourself for feeling this way. But now I want you to ask yourself a sincere question. If you could change the way you view the end of the year, what would you change? Perhaps you would like to create your own rituals, your own ways of celebrating, your own ways of closing cycles. Perhaps you would like to choose who accompanies you and not be forced to accept just anyone. Or perhaps you would simply like to be understood, not to be judged for preferring tranquility. And that's okay. You are not abnormal. You are not cold. You are not indifferent. You are someone who feels too much. And feeling too much sometimes requires being alone. If this video made you think, if it awakened something within you, if it touched a point that perhaps you didn't even know was hidden, I want you to do something now. Comment below what bothers you most about end-of-year visits. Your response may help other people who feel exactly like you, but have never had the courage to admit it. And before I close this chapter, let me ask you one last thing. When was the last time you chose your own peace, even if others didn't understand? Perhaps this is the answer you've been avoiding for a long time. Now, if you've watched this far, I'm going to ask you something special. At the end of the video, when the final screen appears, watch the other recommended videos. They continue along that same line of reflection, depth, and emotional truth. And to show me that you stayed until the end, type the word breathe in the comments. And also, say, which city are you watching from? So I can understand how far this message is reaching. And if you feel that this type of content touches your soul, subscribe to the channel. Here, you will never be forced to feel anything. You will only be invited to understand yourself better.